The sound of hushed voices drifted through the hallway like poisoned smoke. I stood outside my father's study, my hand frozen on the brass doorknob, listening to my husband David and his sister Megan discuss my inheritance as if I were already dead too. "She's too emotional right now to handle the estate properly," Megan whispered. "We need to step in before she makes rash decisions." I know. Just let me handle Fiona. She'll come around." My fingers tightened on the doorknob until my knuckles turned white. Just 3 days after burying my father, and here they were, circling like vultures. I pushed the door open, relishing how they both jumped at my sudden entrance. "Handle me how exactly, David?" The guilty flash across his face confirmed everything I needed to know. 18 years of marriage dissolved in that single moment. He recovered quickly, plastering on that patronizing smile he used when he thought I was being difficult. "Sweetheart, we were just discussing how to help you through this difficult time." "By going behind my back?" The words came out sharp enough to draw blood. "In my father's study, no less." Megan stepped forward, arms crossed. "Someone needs to think practically here. You're clearly not in the right emotional state to— Get out!" My voice was quiet, but carried enough steel to make them both flinch. "Both of you, now." "Fiona, be reasonable," David started, but I cut him off. "Reasonable?" I laughed, and the sound was ugly even to my own ears. "You want reasonable? How's this? You have exactly 30 seconds to leave this room before I call my lawyer and have you both removed from the property." They exchanged glances, that silent sibling communication that had always excluded me. Megan gathered her designer purse, shooting me a look of practiced concern. "We're just trying to help, Fiona. You'll see that eventually." I watched them leave, noting how David's hand lingered protectively on his sister's back. The moment they were gone, I locked the door and sank into my father's leather chair, inhaling the lingering scent of his pipe tobacco. The study remained exactly as he'd left it. Organized chaos of papers, books, and mementos from a life well lived. My fingers traced the edge of his mahogany desk, remembering how he'd sit here every evening, reading glasses perched on his nose, working late into the night. "You were right about them, Dad," I whispered to the empty room. I should have listened. My father had never trusted David, had seen through his careful charm to something darker underneath. But I'd been young and stubborn, determined to prove him wrong. Now, surrounded by the remnants of my father's life, I could finally see the truth he'd tried to protect me from. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom, my oldest friend, and the only person who'd stood by me through everything. "How are you holding up? Need backup?" Before I could respond, another text appeared. This one from Megan to our family group chat. "Concerned about Fiona's state of mind. David and I think we should discuss power of attorney until she's more stable. Family meeting tomorrow?" The room seemed to tilt sideways as rage and disbelief warred in my chest. They weren't even trying to hide their intentions anymore. I looked up at the portrait of my father on the wall, his eyes kind but shrewd, and something cold and calculating settled in my gut. "You always said revenge was a waste of energy," I told his picture, "but you never saw what they'd become." I picked up my phone and typed a reply to Tom. "Actually, I could use your help. How much do you know about estate law?" The last rays of sunlight filtered through the study windows, casting long shadows across the floor. In their darkness, I began to plan. David and Megan wanted to play games with my inheritance? Fine, but they were about to learn that I'd been paying attention all these years. I knew exactly where to hit to make it hurt. They thought I was too emotional to handle things? I'd show them exactly how calculated I could be. The family dinner table had become a battlefield, and Megan wielded her fork like a weapon, gesturing at me between precise, delicate bites. "It's just that children bring such purpose to life, don't you think, Mother?" My mother-in-law nodded absently, more focused on cutting her meat than engaging in another of Megan's pointed attacks. But I caught David's slight flinch, the way his shoulders tensed at his sister's words. "Speaking of purpose," I said, maintaining my composure, "how's the job search going, Megan?" The fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Oh, I'm focusing on being there for Lucas and Nina right now. They need stability after the divorce." "Of course they do," David jumped in, shooting me a warning look. Family comes first. I took a long sip of wine, letting the bitter taste match my mood. Lucas, slouched beside his mother, hadn't touched his food. Nina kept glancing between all of us adults like she was watching a tennis match, waiting for the next serve. Actually, Megan brightened suddenly, that reminds me. David mentioned you might have some space available in that big house of yours, now that… She trailed off, her expression arranged into perfect sympathy. My knife scraped against the plate with an ear-splitting screech. Now that my father's dead? Fiona, David warned. No, please. Let's be direct for once. I set down my utensils. You want to move in, don't you, Megan? Nina's head snapped up. What? Mom, you said we were just visiting more often. Well, it makes sense, Megan pressed on, ignoring her daughter's outburst. David and I have discussed it, and with the estate settlement coming up, you've discussed it? The words came out sharp enough to cut glass. When exactly did you and my husband have this conversation about my home? David reached for my hand under the table. I pulled away. Sweetheart, it's not like that. We were just exploring options. Without me? The room felt too small, too hot. And when were you planning to include me in these discussions about my father's house? Our house, David corrected quietly. No. I stood up, my chair scraping back. My father's house, which he left to me, not to you, and certainly not to your sister. Megan's perfectly composed facade cracked. This is exactly what I meant about her emotional state. She's clearly not thinking rationally. Mom, stop it! Nina pushed away from the table. This is weird. This is all really weird. Lucas finally looked up from his plate. Can we just go home? This is about family, Megan insisted, her voice rising. About keeping us together. But you've always tried to separate David from us, haven't you, Fiona? Always playing the victim. That's enough. My mother-in-law's stern voice cut through the tension. This is neither the time nor the place. When is the time? I asked, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. When David and Megan have already decided everything? When I come home to find moving boxes in my father's study? You're being paranoid, David said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked around the table, at Megan's barely concealed triumph, at David's guilty avoidance, at the teenagers caught in the crossfire of adult games. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. Dinner's over, I announced. Nina, Lucas, I'll call you an Uber if you'd like to go home. Fiona! David stood up. You can't just… Actually, I can. I pulled out my phone. And while I'm at it, I'm calling my lawyer first thing tomorrow. I think it's time we had a proper discussion about the estate. All cards on the table. Megan's face went pale. David, are you going to let her? Let me? I laughed, and the sound held no humor. Oh, Megan, you really don't know me at all, do you? I walked out of the dining room, leaving chaos in my wake. Through the closing door, I heard Nina's voice. Mom, what did you do? In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, my hands shaking as I typed a message to Tom. Remember that favor you owe me? Time to cash it in. The reply came instantly. Name it. I smiled, thinking of the property records Tom had access to, of Megan's precarious financial situation after her divorce, of all the perfectly legal ways to ensure she'd never find another rental in this town. Let's talk tomorrow, I wrote back. Over coffee. Bring everything you have on local real estate listings. All of them. Behind me, I could hear David calling my name, his footsteps approaching. But for the first time since my father's death, I felt truly clear-headed. They wanted to play games with my inheritance? Fine. Game on. Tom spread the documents across his office desk, each paper another nail in the coffin of my marriage. They've been planning this for months, Fiona. Look at the dates. My hands trembled as I picked up a rental agreement draft, David's familiar signature at the bottom. The amount listed was barely half the market rate. He was going to use my father's house to subsidize his sister's lifestyle. There's more. Tom hesitated, then slid over another document. I found this when I was looking into the property records. It was a bank statement. David had withdrawn significant amounts over the past year, funneling them into an account I'd never seen before. The dates coincided with Megan's divorce proceedings. He's been supporting her all along, I said, my voice hollow, while I was taking care of my dying father. A knock at the door made us both jump. Tom's assistant poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here asking for Fiona. Says she's a friend of David's from work? My stomach clenched. Samantha? A young woman entered, perfectly put together in a way that made me suddenly aware of my own disheveled appearance. I'm sorry to show up like this, but I couldn't keep quiet anymore. About what exactly? I asked, though part of me already knew. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking slightly. We've been. She stopped, took a breath. It started during your father's illness. He said you were distant, that your marriage was essentially over. The room tilted sideways. Tom's hand appeared on my shoulder, steadying me. Show her, Samantha said quietly, holding out her phone. Messages, dozens of them. Photos, hotel receipts. All while I'd been sitting by my father's hospital bed, thinking my husband was working late. Why are you showing me this? Because yesterday, he told me about their plan to move Megan in, that they're going to push you out of your own home. Samantha's voice hardened. I realized I wasn't the only one he was manipulating. A text notification lit up my phone. David, coming home early. We need to talk about the house situation. Megan's lease is up next month. I laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. The house situation, that's what he calls it. Fiona, Tom started, but I was already gathering the documents. No, it's perfect timing, actually. Let's have a talk about the house situation. I drove home in a daze, the manila envelope of evidence heavy on the passenger seat. The house loomed before me, my father's pride and joy, now tainted by betrayal. David was waiting in the kitchen, looking concerned. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you. Have you? I set the envelope on the counter. Like you've been trying to reach Samantha? His face went blank, then shifted to confusion. What are you talking about? Don't! My voice cracked. She showed me everything, just like Tom showed me the rental agreement you drafted, the secret account. You had Tom investigate me? Color flooded his face. This is exactly why we need... We? I slapped the envelope. There is no we anymore, David. There's you and Megan, plotting to take my father's house. There's you and Samantha, plotting God knows what else. But there is no we. You're twisting everything. He stepped toward me, hands raised placatingly. Yes, I helped Megan financially. She's my sister. And Samantha, that was a mistake. I was lonely. While I was watching my father die? The words tasted like acid. His phone buzzed. Megan's face lit up the screen. Answer it, I said quietly. Tell her the house situation has changed. Fiona, please, we can work this out, for the family. Family? I pulled out the rental agreement, then slowly, deliberately, tore it in half. You want to talk about family? Let's talk about how you'll explain to your sister that not only is she not moving in, but I'm selling the house. The blood drained from his face. You can't. Actually, I can. Sole inheritor, remember? The paperwork you and Megan were so concerned about? I tore the agreement into smaller pieces, letting them fall like confetti. Consider this my counteroffer. His phone kept buzzing. Mine too now, probably Megan realizing her carefully laid plans were unraveling. You're angry, I understand, but don't do anything rash. Rash? I smiled, and watched him flinch at whatever he saw in my expression. Oh, David, I haven't even started yet. The notification lit up my phone screen at 3 a.m. Fiona Barrett is clearly unstable and endangering our family's well-being. Her recent erratic behavior following her father's death has become concerning. Please keep her in your prayers as we attempt to intervene. Megan's Facebook post already had 27 sympathetic responses. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments, each one a carefully crafted missile aimed at my sanity. I dialed Tom's number without thinking about the hour. He answered on the second ring, voice alert. I saw it. Already screenshot everything before she can delete it. She's laying groundwork, I said, pacing my father's study, making me look unstable so they can challenge the inheritance. Smart play, Tom admitted. But we're smarter. A soft knock at the study door made me freeze. Hold on. Nina stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, looking small and lost. Can I come in? Mom's being weird, and I didn't know where else to go. I gestured her in, switching to speakerphone. Tom, I'll call you back. Wait, he said quickly. Check your email first. There's something you need to see about David's company finances. I ended the call as Nina perched on the leather armchair, hugging her knees. I saw what Mom posted. It's not right. No, it's not. I sat across from her, noting how much she looked like Megan at that age, before bitterness had carved permanent lines around her mouth. Why are you here, Nina? Mom's planning something. She was on the phone with her friend Olivia, talking about power of attorney and mental health evaluations. Nina's voice cracked. She said you're dangerous, but I remember how you sat with me in the hospital when I broke my arm, even though Mom told you not to come. My email notification pinged. Tom's message. I ignored it, focusing on Nina's tear-streaked face. Does your mother know you're here? She shook her head. Lucas covered for me. He thinks this is wrong too, but he's scared to say anything. My phone buzzed again. David calling. I declined it, then noticed 3 missed calls from Megan and a text from my mother-in-law asking to meet urgently. Nina, I need you to listen carefully. I leaned forward. Your mother and Uncle David are trying to take this house. They're going to say a lot of things about me that aren't true. I need you to... The study door burst open. David stood there, still in his work clothes, face flushed. Nina, your mother's frantic. I'm taking you home. No. Nina's voice was small but firm. I'm staying with Aunt Fiona. This isn't up for discussion. David's tone shifted, became harder. Fiona, you've gone too far. Using the kids to get back at us? She came to me, I said, standing, because she knows what you and Megan are doing. What we're doing? He laughed, but there was an edge of desperation. We're trying to protect this family while you spiral out of control. My laptop chimed. Another email from Tom. The subject line caught my eye. Urgent. David's company fraud evidence. David saw me looking at the screen, and something shifted in his expression. Nina, wait in the car. I'm not. Now! Nina flinched at his tone but stood her ground. Mom's wrong about Aunt Fiona. And so are you. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. I opened Tom's email, skimming quickly. My breath caught. How long have you been embezzling from your company, David? His face went white. You don't know what you're talking about. The money you've been giving Megan, it wasn't just from our accounts, was it? I turned the laptop screen toward him. Does the board know about these transactions? Nina made a small, hurt sound. David stepped toward me, but I held up my phone. One call to your CEO, that's all it would take. You wouldn't. Try me. I met his gaze steadily. Nina, go home. Tell your mother that if she posts one more word about my mental state, every financial document I have goes public, including the ones showing where her divorce settlement really came from. After Nina left, David remained, vibrating with barely contained rage. You're destroying everything. No, I said quietly. I'm just getting started. I forwarded Tom's email to my secure account, watching David's face. You and Megan wanted a war. Congratulations. You've got one. The study clock ticked loudly in the silence, counting down to whatever came next. Outside, I heard Nina's voice rising in argument with her mother, who must have been waiting in the driveway. My phone buzzed with another notification, probably more concerned messages about my stability. Let them talk. I had evidence now, and better yet, I had the truth. The game was changing, and for the first time since my father's death, I knew exactly how to play it. The real estate office buzzed with quiet efficiency as I watched Tom make the calls. Each conversation was brief, professional, and absolutely devastating to Megan's housing prospects. Yes, I understand she's interested in the Palmer Street property, he said into the phone, catching my eye. Unfortunately, there are some concerns about financial stability. Yes, exactly. I'd suggest looking elsewhere. My phone vibrated. Another message from Nina. Mom's freaking out. No one will rent to her. What did you do? I left it unanswered, like the dozen before it. The guilt gnawed at me, but I pushed it down. How many is that now? Every rental property in a 20-mile radius has been warned about potential payment issues. Tom set down his phone. Megan won't find anything suitable before her current lease expires. The satisfaction I expected to feel tasted more like ashes. The kids. We'll be fine, Tom cut in. Sometimes you have to break things to fix them. His office door burst open. Samantha stood there, mascara streaked down her face. David knows. He knows I told you everything. My stomach dropped. What happened? He came to my apartment last night, drunk, said I'd ruined everything. She hugged herself, trembling. He threatened to tell HR we'd been having an affair for years, that I manipulated company information to hurt him. Tom was already reaching for his phone, but I held up a hand. Let me guess. Eggs? These? Right out after he left, you got calls about suspicious activity in your banking records? She nodded, fresh tears spilling. My accounts are frozen. He's destroying me. No, I said quietly. He's showing us his playbook. My phone lit up with a text from Lucas. Aunt Fiona, please. Mom's talking about moving us 3 hours away to live with grandmother. I can't leave my school, my friends. The walls of Tom's office seemed to close in. David was retaliating exactly as I'd expected, but using Samantha as collateral damage hadn't been part of my plan. Neither was forcing Nina and Lucas to pay for their mother's sins. Tom, can you help Samantha with her accounts? I stood, gathering my things. I need to make a stop. Fiona, he warned, don't do anything rash. Too late for that, isn't it? I drove to my father's house, my house, on autopilot, mind racing. The moment I pulled into the driveway, I knew something was wrong. David's car was there, and through the window, I could see Megan pacing the living room. They both turned as I entered. Megan's face was blotchy from crying, but her eyes burned with triumph. There she is, the woman who thinks she can tear this family apart. You did that yourself, I said. But the words felt hollow as I noticed the papers spread across my father's antique coffee table. What is this? David stepped forward, all pretense of warmth gone. Insurance records, medical histories, witness statements about your recent erratic behavior. From who? Everyone who matters. Megan's smile was razor sharp. Your mother-in-law, the neighbors. Even your dear friend Olivia had quite a lot to say about your mental state. My hands clenched into fists. You're trying to have me committed. We're trying to help you, David said softly, and for a moment he sounded so much like the man I'd married that my resolve wavered. You're not well, Fiona. Haven't been since your father died. Don't you dare use him against me. Then stop using my children against me, Megan snapped. Nina won't speak to me. Lucas is threatening to run away, all because you had to play your little power games. My phone buzzed again. Tom this time. David's company board meeting tomorrow. Evidence ready to send. Give the word. I looked at these people who had once been family, really looked at them. David, who'd shared my bed for 18 years while plotting behind my back. Megan, who'd weaponized her own children in her desperate grab for security. One chance, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Walk away now. Leave my house. Leave me alone. And I'll stop. Or what? Megan laughed. You'll destroy us? Look around, Fiona. You're outnumbered. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over Tom's message. One word from me and David's career would implode. One more call and Megan's reputation would be shredded. I could end them both right here. But Nina and Lucas would be caught in the blast radius, and something of the woman I used to be, the one who sat by hospital beds and believed in family, still whispered that there had to be another way. Last chance, I said softly. Choose carefully. The board meeting minutes arrived in my inbox at exactly 9:47 a.m. I sat in my father's study, watching 18 years of marriage dissolve in black and white text. David hadn't just been embezzling, he'd been systematically destroying evidence of Megan's involvement in the scheme. My phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen. They're moving against you, he said, without preamble. David's lawyer just filed an emergency petition questioning your mental competency. They're requesting temporary control of the estate. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, bitter as poison. Of course they are. Fiona, listen carefully. They've frozen your accounts. All of them. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of my father's desk, feeling the smooth wood under my fingers, the last solid thing in my world. How? David's claiming joint ownership due to marriage. Megan's testimonial about your erratic behavior gave them leverage. They're... A sharp knock cut him off. Through the study window, I saw 3 police cars in my driveway. They're here, I whispered. Don't let them in without a warrant. I'm calling my lawyer friend. The front door crashed open. Heavy footsteps echoed through my house, my father's house. I ended the call, slipping my phone into my pocket as they entered the study. Mrs. Barrett? One officer stepped forward while 2 others flanked him. We have a court order for a psychiatric evaluation. Behind them stood David and Megan. My husband's face was carefully arranged into concerned distress, but his sister couldn't quite hide her triumph. I'm so sorry it came to this, David said softly. But you need help, sweetheart. The endearment hit like a slap. I looked at the family photos on my father's walls. Happiness frozen in frames. All lies now. You really think this will work? My voice came out steady, surprising even me. That you can just have me committed and take everything? This isn't about taking anything. Megan stepped forward, all false sympathy. We're worried about you, ever since your father died. Don't you dare mention my father. Mrs. Barrett, the officer interrupted. Please come with us. Don't make this difficult. A text vibrated in my pocket. Probably Tom with legal advice, but it was too late. They'd outmaneuvered me, used my own aggressive moves against me. Everything I'd done to protect myself had only given them ammunition. Can I at least get my coat? The officer nodded. I walked to the closet, every step measured. Inside, behind the winter coats, sat my father's old safe. The one David didn't know about, the one containing documents that could destroy them both. My fingers brushed the dial, but I hesitated. Through the doorway, I could see a framed photo of Nina and Lucas from last Christmas. They were smiling, unaware of how their world was about to shatter. Mrs. Barrett? The officer's voice hardened. Step away from the closet. I let my hand fall. Even now, even after everything, I couldn't do it. Couldn't destroy the kids' lives and just to save myself. You've won, I said quietly, turning to face David. Congratulations. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt? Regret? But Megan stepped forward, blocking my view of him. It's for the best, she said. Once you're better, you'll understand. The officers moved to escort me out. As we passed the study threshold, I caught a glimpse of my father's portrait. He seemed to be watching with those knowing eyes of his, and suddenly I remembered something he'd told me long ago. Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what really matters. Wait. I stopped, ignoring the officer's hand on my arm. David, check your email. The board meeting minutes came through this morning. His face went pale. Megan looked between us, confusion replacing triumph. What's she talking about? Nothing, David said quickly. Too quickly. I smiled, feeling the last piece of my old life crumble away. You should really read them, Megan, especially the part about where your divorce settlement money really came from. The officers pulled me toward the door as chaos erupted behind me. Megan's voice rose in accusation. David's in desperate denial. Their perfect plan was already unraveling, and I hadn't even needed the documents in the safe. Sometimes losing everything meant finding your real power. As they led me to the police car, I thought of Nina and Lucas, of Samantha, of all the collateral damage in this war of attrition. Maybe it was time to stop fighting for revenge and start fighting for something else entirely. My father would have understood. Some battles you win by surrendering everything except your truth. The psychiatric evaluation took 3 days. 3 days of careful answers, measured responses, and watching the clock tick while David and Megan dismantled my life. When they finally released me, Tom was waiting outside with a thick manila envelope and a grim expression. It's done, he said, opening his car door. The board received everything this morning. I slid into the passenger seat, my hospital bracelet still intact. And David's been suspended pending investigation. But Fiona, he hesitated. Megan's gone nuclear. She's at your house right now with movers. The drive home felt like moving through molasses. As we pulled up, I saw Lucas sitting on the front steps, head in his hands. Nina paced the lawn, phone pressed to her ear. "Mom's lost it," she said as I approached. "She's throwing everything into boxes, saying we're leaving tonight." Through the open front door, I could hear Megan's voice, shrill and desperate. "Pack faster! We need to be gone before—" She stopped when I appeared in the doorway. The foyer was chaos. Boxes everywhere, picture frames askew. My father's antique mirror shattered on the floor. "You're supposed to be committed," she spat. "Sorry to disappoint." I stepped over a fallen lamp. "Where's David?" "Gone." Her laugh was brittle. "Thanks to you, his career, his reputation, everything we built. Everything you stole," I corrected quietly. "Mom, stop!" Nina pushed past me. "This is insane. We can't just—" "Get in the car, Nina." Megan grabbed another photo frame, tossing it carelessly into a box. "Lucas, help with these boxes." "No." Lucas appeared behind me, shoulders straight. "I read the board minutes, Mom. About where our private school tuition really came from. About the money laundering." Megan froze, color draining from her face. "You don't understand." "I understand enough." He moved to stand beside his sister. "We're not going anywhere." The movers paused, sensing the tension. I waved them out, waiting until we heard their truck start before speaking. "It's over, Megan. The police are already investigating the embezzlement. David's probably making a deal right now to save himself." "He wouldn't." But uncertainty crept into her voice. "He's my brother." "He's a coward," I said softly. "Always has been. Why do you think he married me? My father's connections, his money. David saw an opportunity and took it, just like he used you." "You're lying!" She grabbed a crystal vase, my mother's wedding gift, and hurled it at the wall. "You've poisoned everyone against us. My own children." "Mom!" Nina's voice cracked. "Stop!" "Or what?" Megan whirled on her daughter. "You'll choose her? Like everyone else? Like your father?" "This isn't about choosing sides," I interrupted. "It's about truth. Show them the divorce settlement papers, Megan. Show them where that money really came from." She lunged for me then, all pretense of control shattered. But Lucas caught her arm, his face a mask of pain and determination. "Enough," he said quietly. "We're staying with Aunt Fiona." The fight seemed to drain out of Megan all at once. She sagged in her son's grip, looking suddenly old and lost. "You don't understand," she whispered. "After the divorce, I had nothing. David promised to help, to take care of us." "By stealing?" Nina's voice was small. "By trying to lock Aunt Fiona away?" My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Police are 5 minutes out. David's confessed everything." I looked at Megan, really looked at her. Behind the anger and desperation, I saw something familiar, the same fear I'd felt when I thought I'd lost everything. "Take the kids upstairs," I told Lucas. "Pack what you need for tonight." "Fiona, please," Megan started, but I held up a hand. "The police are coming. You have two choices. Stay and face them or run. But either way, your children stay here." She stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned and fled, leaving the front door swinging in her wake. Through the window, I watched her car disappear down the street just as police lights began to flash in the distance. Upstairs, I could hear Nina crying, Lucas's low voice trying to comfort her. The house felt different now. No longer a battlefield, but a sanctuary. My father would have understood. Sometimes victory isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about saving what's worth saving from the wreckage they leave behind. The last box from my father's study sat unopened on the kitchen counter while Nina and Lucas argued over pizza toppings. Their laughter echoed through the house, filling spaces that had been silent for too long. "Half pepperoni, half veggie," I called out, settling the debate. As I reached for the phone to order, A manila envelope slid from beneath the box, scattering old photographs across the counter. My father's handwriting caught my eye. Notes scribbled on the backs of photos. One showed him standing beside his own father, both men wearing forced smiles. Behind it, he'd written, "Some battles aren't worth winning. Some are worth losing everything for." "What's that?" Lucas appeared at my shoulder, pizza debate forgotten. "History," I said, but handed him the photo. "Your great-grandfather. He tried to control everything, too. The family business. Who married whom, where everyone lived." Nina joined us, picking up another photo. "What happened?" "My father walked away, built his own life, his own success." I touched the familiar handwriting. He never spoke to his father again. "Like Mom," Nina whispered. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Tom stood on the porch, holding a stack of papers and looking apologetic. "David's plea deal came through," he said, following me into the kitchen. "He's cooperating fully. They'll arrest Megan when they find her." Lucas's shoulders tensed. I touched his arm gently. "Go order the pizza. We'll talk about this later." After the kids disappeared upstairs, Tom spread the papers across the counter. "The house is officially yours alone. David surrendered all claims in exchange for leniency. And Samantha? Cleared of all wrongdoing. She's testifying against him." I nodded, gathering the scattered photos. One slipped free, my wedding day. David looked so sincere, so loving. All lies, carefully crafted over 18 years. "What about the safe?" Tom asked quietly. "Those documents could still—" "No!" I slid the wedding photo into the shredder, watching it disappear. "Some victories aren't worth the cost." My phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text was brief. "I'm sorry. Take care of them. And am." "Megan?" Tom asked, reading over my shoulder. "Doesn't matter." I deleted the message. "The kids are what matter now." I opened the study box, expecting more photographs or paperwork. Instead, I found a sealed envelope addressed to me in my father's handwriting, dated just weeks before his death. The letter inside was short. "Dearest Fiona, by now you've probably seen what I always saw: the poison in David's kindness, the desperation in Megan's anger. You'll want revenge. You'll think it's justice. But remember this: true strength isn't in destroying your enemies. It's in choosing which battles define you. I chose you over family fortune once. Now it's your turn to choose. All my love, Dad." The doorbell rang again. Pizza delivery this time. Upstairs, Nina laughed at something Lucas said. The sound filled the house like sunshine after rain. "You okay?" Tom asked, watching me carefully. I folded the letter, tucking it into my pocket next to Megan's text. "I'm selling the house." "What?" "But you fought so hard." "That's why." I gestured around at the walls that had witnessed so much pain. "Too many ghosts, too many battles. The kids need somewhere new, somewhere without all this history." "And David? Megan? They'll face their consequences." I pulled out my phone, deleted the draft email containing the last damaging documents. "But not from me, not anymore." Tom gathered the papers, understanding in his eyes. "Your father would be proud." "Pizza's here," Nina called from upstairs. "Can we eat in the living room? Just this once?" I looked at the formal dining room where so many family dinners had devolved into warfare. "Actually, let's eat on the back porch. It's a beautiful evening." Later, watching Nina and Lucas argue over the last slice under the stars, I felt something settle in my chest. Not peace exactly. Too much had broken for that. But something like wisdom, earned the hard way. My father was right. Some battles are worth losing everything for. But sometimes the real victory is in choosing not to fight at all. I pulled out my phone one last time, typed a quick message to Megan's number. "They're safe. They're loved. That's all that matters now." Then I deleted her number and joined the kids on the porch, leaving the ghosts of old battles behind in the gathering dark.